All right, I'm going to get started. Let's see. So very interesting week, very weird week in terms of price action. All right, so remember what we were called last week. Right, it was the fact that we had, right, obviously had our low, and this is our retracement based on previous high, whether it's this one or the previous one, whichever leg you're referring to. Right, we had that pullback occur because of the pretty much the final leg here, the break of structure, change of character, right, back into discount, I'm sorry, which generated a new high, creating bullish structure for the medium term, not necessarily long term. So right, as we dive into our legs even deeper, looking at structure, right, low high takes out structure, right, have a pullback, right, and then essentially unwillingness. Do a different color. Right, so we had essentially the recovery. However, we had unwillingness based on this leg and here. Unwillingness, right, which led to a liquidity grab, right, that was still inside of the original structural range. Right, we had unwillingness, or not unwillingness, a liquidity grab, which led to a break of structure, signifying bullish character, right? And even though we had a mess here, right, the leg was never broken, right? Never broken, low, high, retracement, right? Considering this kind of messes the bias up, not the bias up, but it kind of makes everything very sloppy. But if you really wanted to get a lot more technical with that too, you could say this is your leg, right? And you could say this is the immediate range, right? Low, high, gap, but retracement, break of structure, continuation, right? So it was very, very tricky because I was wanting to see if we would break this low, which would signify a change of direction, and any recovery would be a pullback lower. But right, we have to acknowledge, right, that our leg is still bullish, momentum is still bullish, right? So even if it's taking a lot of effort to continue higher, we can't really play against that bias. Because we're now technically in play of our entire leg, right? So medium term bullish, right? But the only way to judge a change of character is through that initial structure break inside of smaller time frame. So it's right, whether you want to say, right, we have a potential area of interest, right? There could be potential wick here, right? But this POI means nothing if we just continue higher and we don't give any reaction, right? Unfortunately, we don't get volume with DXY, which is why we refer to EU for it, right? But I'm curious to see whether we're going to take or look into this POI, right? And I want to see what happens to give, essentially a sense of continuation or a sense of reversal, right? And that's important because it's very easy to be glued to a bias, right? I think that's one of the hardest things I've even personally seen is knowing when to switch a bias, right? Which is why the introduction of the disruption concept is there, right? Mainly to help understand that directional bias. Like for example, we can go to EU, right? With EU, same thing, right? We have high, low retracement, right? But we could have seen a reversal based on the immediate range, right? So the immediate range mitigated, and there was an accumulation in here. I don't know if you guys remember, right? M1 accumulation, M1 result, right? Led to that impulsive move to the upside, right? However, we are unwilling to take out structure, right? So the change of character was there, but the follow through wasn't, right? So the follow through, right, ended up rebalancing inefficient pricing and taking out structure, right? So even though we came to react, where is it? I believe it was somewhere in this wick here. Was it? Let me see. I don't recall. Right there. Believe that's an inefficiency there, right? So seeing the inefficiency fill continue, right, give a reaction, right, and then market open, took that pricing out, right? What does that mean? Bullish disruption, right? Bullish disruption, right? We now focus on the new structural range in hand because that disruption here also signified a break of structure, right? High, low retracement, right? In terms of POIs, the only reasonable POIs that I see would have been here, right? Wick, right? Because right, mitigation, order flow continuation. However, that did not work, right? And if you wanted to go for another POI, is there, right? And another POI would have been here. Very valid POIs, but we must refer to the reaction. Right, so POI number 1 taken out. POI number 2, right, our structural leg is there, right? But as we zoom in, I'll show you right now. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Hold on. Let me explain, bro. Let me explain, please. Right, we have our full leg. Now we have our leg inside of our leg, right? And we're looking for signs of reversal based on overall bearish momentum, right? POI immediately, right, comes back to wick this, right? But, right, you could see this as disruption. You could see this as the pullback of the leg, right? But anyways, here, because we essentially took out this price point here, essentially signifies a type of disruption based on the overall leg, meaning that the continuation order flow is not in play just yet. It can still convert itself to that, right? But that isn't necessarily what happened. So there's pretty much 2 opportunities that you can go off of. You can go off the high risk, right? Because we still have an overall bullish leg. Yeah, hold on. Sorry about that, guys. Sorry about that. Right, so disruption, right? We come back and then create that pretty much bullish scenario that incites the pullback. So if you want it to be high risk, right, there's inefficient pricing there. I believe that's M5, right? Inefficient pricing there, right? And if you wanted to base that, right, the point of invalidation for me would be at the high of this leg, right? So you would need a very conservative SL for that type of scenario, right? Just to make sure you're covered, because there is inefficient pricing here, but I'm reading, right, the leg that essentially incited the bearish disruption, I'm sorry, right, which came back to inefficient pricing and point of invalidation at the high, because there is also a potential SC there. So that's a very conservative move, right? And that's only a 3 pip stop, right? Very realistic, right? Whereas if you wanted to wait longer, right, I believe M3, right, as you can see here, there is a candle of interest, right? The inefficiency is interest 1. The interest 2 is the potential right, the potential move here. So the reason why I'm pointing that out, right, let's go to M2, M1, right, is because there's a wick there present and there's also an SC present. So you have essentially a overall POI with your point of invalidation being at the new high or at the recent high, because this led to the break here. And it's only important, this break is only important because of where it's mitigating from, right? Not only that, we come down with momentum. Now the momentum is definitely on our side because we're continuing order flow, we're continuing overall structure, we're continuing the overall momentum. So if you really wanted to be conservative here, right, the SL would have been above the POI, right? And that would have been another, I believe, 3 pip. Yeah, another 3 pip stop, right? But it's the reason why I'm trying to keep that a bit wider is because I want to make sure I win the trade. And we're going to come back to that topic in a bit. A break of structure is the break of the full leg. In my opinion, the disruption is only the initial sign. So it could either be a pullback or it could be the order flow disruption. So the order flow disruption, right, the reason why I note it as disruption and not a break of structure is because we're breaking through the POI. We already tried to react from a POI, right? It tried to react. It gave that preliminary break of structure, but then it failed, right? So it's inciting a type of reversal. Okay, so conservative entry. Which led to continuation lower, right? So because we broke this wick here, in my opinion, that is a pretty significant break, right? Because this is essentially the final push down that led to the overall leg up, meaning that this is now considered bearish. So my next immediate target is here. Ooh, sorry about that. Right, so pretty much yesterday I was trying to see if we were just gonna give a pretty much a straight up continuation, or if we were gonna give any type of significant pullback, right? So I was essentially referring during session to this leg, right, with the highest potential POI being here and the next POI being, or the initial POI being there, right? So I made a play based on this, right? Because even though there is another potential POI up here, I'm playing based on reactions. So, right, we had the break, right? We had the intent of wanting to go lower, right? Keep in mind, right, that the only reason why I'm bearish is because I'm really trying to stress that continuation over reversal bias, right? And also because we've taken out very, very big points in price. So I'm more so targeting the next liquidity point, which is here. So ideally what I wanted inside of this range, I'm trying to remember which POI I played off of. I believe was there M15 move here? Yeah, there was an M15 wick because the lower time frame looked like a bunch of wicks. So I try to derive something from there. And as we come essentially smaller time frame, right, we came into essentially the POI, right, and this was my execution. But, you know, obviously we got the disruption, right, with the conservative entry being here, right? So I've pretty much found a very if this then that, right? Whereas every time frame is showing me bearishness, right, and everything is showing me continuation. So theoretically, the only way this is going to continue lower from here is if we react from here, right? So although it's the result isn't a loss, that's okay because it's a justified scenario, right? So because the scenario was unjustified, right, we got to keep in mind that we shouldn't be glued to that bias, right? You have now acknowledged a low high, retracement, continuation, retracement, continuation, retracement, continuation, right? Because this move here is a disruption and the invalidation of my entire bias to the downside because it failed. So unless I see that bearish break, now I cannot assume a reversal, if that makes sense. Right? Which is unfortunate, right? But that's okay because I created a justified scenario, but the justified scenario did not give me a follow through, but it did give me the reaction that I wanted, right? So even though I'm wrong, it's okay because we're practicing good management of your rules and a good execution, right? So, and also keep in mind, trading is all about testing a scenario. So keep in mind testing. But yeah, other than that, this has been super messy, and I'm curious to see if we're going to reach POI up here, right? Or if we're going to break the leg, right? Just to see whether we're going to continue lower or not, right? But even if we break to the upside, it could very easily shift, you know? Which is why I'm always saying, you know, we don't have enough data to make certain predictions because we don't, right? Because everything can switch within 2-3 candle closures. No matter the time frame you're on. But yeah, anyways, other than that, I haven't really been looking at other pairs. This dropped, right? I think we talked about this on Tuesday. Yeah, I haven't even touched this, right? So I think Thomas was telling me about a possible sell scenario, I think here, right? And remember I told you to acknowledge this, right? So because you're acknowledging the continuation here, oops, let me actually draw a line there, right? Naturally, because we have a higher low, you have to anticipate essentially the target being met, which technically, yes, maybe. Those aren't my dogs, those are the neighbor's dogs, by the way. Right, so actually, no, it didn't. Actually left equal highs, right? Then it gave a reaction, right? So you have to play based on the reaction, right? I think we came back into M15 inefficiency, right? Inefficiency here, yep. Was there anything on smaller time frame? Right, wick, and I want to see if this broke or not. Right, wick, mitigation of wick, mitigation of that wick, came back to point of interest, point of validation at the high. So yeah, that actually incited the bearish order flow. So it's interesting to see. Hard to trade, but interesting to see. Right, because realistically, if you don't catch this entry, the next realistic entry would have been here. Right, high, break of structure, continuation, lower low, actual retracement, looks like even equilibrium. You can see inefficiency fill here, and that would have been your true scenario. So not necessarily important to catch this. You want to catch the winner. Which makes sense in my opinion. How would you catch the one? I just said, bro. High, low retracement. I'm telling you, this is a lot riskier due to the fact that you're playing against structure. Right? So this is your high risk entry, but the biggest potential reward in terms of pips, not necessarily RR. Right? So realistically, not that appealing, right? Because you're guessing a high. Break of structure, POI, missed. Low, high, continuation. Inefficiency fill, continuation. That's the only realistic entry I see there. Unrealistic, high risk, conservative. So that's realistically the only thing that would have made sense to me. Right? Because you have inefficiency here, and you also have inefficiency there. Yo, what is going on with these dogs today? Right. So realistically, 3 pip again. 3 pip. Right. After that, there aren't many. Yeah, that would have been the only scenario that made sense. Right here, you can see the actual POI was broken. Let's see. Yeah, and it didn't even mitigate the final candle. It came back to this inefficiency here. Looks like an M3. Yeah, M3 inefficiency. So that would have been the only way for you to read that. Right, liquidity grab, but it's kind of hard to read it as a liquidity grab because you're acknowledging that leg. So hard to, pretty much very hard. Yo, hold on. I don't know what is going on. Hey, chill. Relax. Sorry about that. But yeah, not the most realistic entry, in my opinion. I mean, bro, you have to be looking at the chart at any time to be catching it. Any entry. So that argument is pretty iffy. Yeah, I see that. Makes sense. What time is that entry? That was right after overlap. Like mid New York. Yeah, that's bro. Right after overlap. That's what I'm saying. How do you label the POI as missed if it creates the new range, like we just pointed out here? Right, POI, missed, create new low, new range. This is all in the new course, by the way, so don't stress it. Because this theory is based on order flow, pretty much. Where you want to catch the continuation of order flow, not necessarily the reversal. Increases your win rate, and it makes you a lot more conservative, objective. Yeah, so I need to upload the videos. I don't know what is... That's not my dog, by the way. I don't know what's going on with the neighbor's dog. Sorry about that. No, bro, it's like... Is it dropping tomorrow? I don't know. I have to check some stuff, bro. But... Because there are some issues with the website that we have to fix. So it's not really up to me. Yo, so my neighbors got new dogs, right? Well, not new dogs, but actually they breed dogs, and they just had these puppies, so they're being extremely annoying. But yeah, anyways, do you guys have any questions? So yeah, I have to actually message. I should actually message them right now and see when is the realistic date that we can release everything. Yeah, no, I mean, I get that, bro. I'm not complaining. It's just there's so much that isn't in my control, you know? Like, I don't have control of the website's coding. I don't have control, over that. That's not my, field of quote unquote expertise. But yeah, it'll be out once we make sure everything with the website is good. Because, for example, we're gonna add the watermark in, and that's gonna essentially, how do I say this? We had to measure the opacity, we had to measure the sizing, and make sure it's like, essentially at the perfect size to where, for one, it can't be copied, and two, it can't be blurred out, and three, it doesn't fill up too much of the screen, so that you guys aren't too focused on the watermark and can actually watch the material, if that makes sense. It's not unpredictable, it's just tedious, bro. Very tedious. Like, you need somebody that knows their stuff, you know? I don't know. He hasn't texted me. But we can cover something else, though, which is what I wanted to talk about. Right? A lot of you, this isn't an issue I've seen with you guys. It's just something I want to point out. Right? So, this is a great example. Right? So, one thing I'm never ever going to do is I'm never going to expose your model to anybody. Right? I have a couple of guys who've messaged me, and they pretty much showed me the trading models they came up with through their backtesting, through their practice, through their research, right? And I don't necessarily approve them, but I do acknowledge them, right? And that to me shows where I don't know why this is not allowing me. Okay, but anyways, I'm gonna find this message. Right, so Eddie is a great example here. Right here. So Eddie, no, bro. What confirmations? That's your trading plan. Your trading models are the sequences you're actually trading. Have we not discussed this before? There's no way we haven't discussed this before. So I can just explain it real quick. There's no way I've never ever talked about trading models, or else people wouldn't be DMing me about it. But do you guys know what I mean by trading model? Let's see who's on the call. A trading model is a trading sequence, right? But I mean, I'm going to show you an example in the videos, but I only show you one example because I don't want you to copy my models. And for one, I don't want to share those. Those are something specifically for you to figure out, right? And Eddie sent me his. So I'm not going to expose anything, like I said, of what it is, but it's a very conservative model based on more so win rate and being correct than trying to achieve high RR, right? So the high RR thing, right, it's like we've always said, it's very misleading, right, due to obviously, you know, certain individuals, but it's become to the point where people want to, how do I say this, they care more about, you know, having the pretty entry, they care more about the fame part, right, the publicity part, than actual consistency. So that's where the attitude portion comes into play, because Eddie has been working on these models, I think, since the beginning of the year at least. Honestly, probably before that, probably around December. So he's been working on those. He pretty much showed me. He showed me his models, and this is actually him playing based on those models currently right here. And as you can see, they actually came out to be very, very nice trades. Let me see. Right, here's another one. Oh wait, I can't. You guys can't see. That's right. That's right. Hold on. I'm sorry about that. Where is this? All right. Sorry about that. Right here. Cool. So I don't know why this isn't allowing me. Like, it's not letting me search for people. That's weird. I can do it on my phone. Is it because it's a different name? That's weird. See, like, yeah, I don't know. I can't do it on here, but I'm just have to scroll through. But anyways, right, it pretty much shows the execution, right? And it's more so an attitude thing that I'm trying to point out, right? Because this is something I talked about with some of the admins. Let's see, here's another one, right? And it's a model based on being right, not necessarily catching the best RR out there, right here. See, he cares more about being right than actually catching the entire move. And I think that creates longevity in the process that you're trading. All right, so let me actually point out these messages because we actually had a good conversation. Right, so we were pretty much saying, right, that trading this type of model shows essentially the character that you portray, right? It shows that you're humble, you're honest with yourself, right? And you found something that genuinely works for you, which is exactly, you know, the entire point of this group, isn't it? So ideally, when you're trying to find a trading model, which is a trading sequence, right? A sequence that you see consistently in price, right? So once you find that and you make it work for you, that's where the consistency comes, and that's where the longevity lies, right? It doesn't necessarily matter about whether or not you're trying to catch 1 to 100s, 1 to 50s, 1 to 20s, right? That is only a result of your trading model. Your trading model is going to be the reason why you actually genuinely win trades, because you're only taking specific types of trades based on personal experience, personal result, right? Does that make sense? What is going on today, man? But do you guys get what I mean with what I'm saying? Why? What do you mean it's a trade-off? What do you mean it's a trade-off? This should be the goal. I mean, yeah, obviously. Don't you want a model that's consistent? No, they're not. I'm literally, so, all right. Does anybody in here know exactly what a trading model is? Right? I know I've talked about it before, so let's see. No, it's not a trade-off, bro. A trading model has no influence on the RR that you're getting. a model has influence on the type of trades that you're executing. Right, should I just get my notes then? Let me read it off my notes. Right, I can give you the difference between them right now. But this isn't one of the videos. Let's see. No, not necessarily. I think because what you're saying is just because you focus on a type of setup doesn't mean you can't get high RR, which is incorrect. What I'm saying is a trading model influences the type of trade you take, not necessarily the type of result that you'll receive. The type of result that you'll receive is based on the model's outline. Exactly, quality over quantity, right? Which is why, like, over the past 6 months, I've kind of more focused on wanting to winch more trades than just trying to catch high RR. Because even though the winners will outweigh the losers in the long run, right, you still expose yourself to so much risk. But anyways, let me find these notes. Let's see. Rough draft 1. Appreciate. No, this is psychology. Truth, withdrawals, brokers, back testing, pair behaviors, creating your model. Okay, let's see if I differentiated this. All right, so a trading model is the unique sequence, right, where essentially a distribution of price occurs, whether it's up or down. Let me see, you can have one more variance. None that we understand. Okay, never mind. I said that a bit wrong. So order flow, right, is the distribution of orders through mitigation or the process of multiple mitigations, right? Whereas the unique sequence where this distribution occurs is called a model, right? Keyword unique sequence, which is subjective to everybody that is, which is subject. Hold on, you just killed my train of thought. Screen's frozen. No, the screen. I'm reading this off my iPad, bro. Right. So order flow is the distribution of orders through mitigation, and the unique sequence where this distribution occurs is called a model. Right? Does that make sense? Or do I have to explain that? I don't know if you guys are understanding the idea. And I'd have to show you one of my models, but I already showed it in the video. So, and the model I showed was a mitigation, was essentially the third mitigation, like POI mitigation, mitigation that then leads to essentially that showing its hand and then catching the entry. I think that's the model that I showed you, which is very conservative and it's a good base. But you can get very creative with it. But yeah, it's kind of hard without showing you the video. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Right, so you want to find whatever works for you, but you also want to find models that are versatile in terms of how you enter a trade, because obviously the environment is always changing, right? And because Q1 is about to end within the next couple of days, right? We should see a change of volatility for Q2, right? And who knows if that's for the good or for the bad. Exactly. Yeah. It's a setup. Yeah. Essentially a setup that you see with parameters for how you take it. Yeah. That kind of, summarizes it. Right. So a trading plan is the confirmations you take, and a trading model is the sequences that you trade. That's like I think that's the simplest way I can put it. Yeah, of course. Why can't it? It's continuously refined. And for example, so a key note that I added on there too was you got to rate your models, right? You got to rate how consistent they are. And if they aren't consistent enough for your liking, then you alter them. It's a continuous refinement, pretty much. Yeah, of course. I wouldn't have too many though, because then you don't want to get confused. It's like the same thing as like trading a lot of pairs, right? Like I can't trade more than 2 or 3 pairs or else I get confused. I can't trade more than 2 or 3 models or else I get confused. Yeah, I think 2 or 3 is a good amount. It shouldn't. I mean, we're in spring season. Yeah, I mean, we're in spring season, Q2. Doesn't realistically make sense, in my opinion, to see low liquidity. I mean, overall low liquidity doesn't make sense. But yeah, I think I chopped up that entire message way too much, and I think I made that sound confusing. So, in summarization, right, your goal is to know your confirmations and to know your sequences that you're trading so that you're able to take consistently winning trades. Because if you're just trying to trade based on an SC in the middle of a range, if that SC has no reason to drop, then it's unrealistic. So that kind of dives more into the intuitive side as well. Like if you guys, let me actually read this definition off to you guys. This is actually something I'm researching on, or just started to research on, just to try to see if there's any correlations. Let me see, where is it? Okay, so IQ, short for intelligence quotient, is a measure of a person's reasoning ability. In short, it is supposed to gauge how well someone can use information and logic to answer questions or make predictions. Does that sound familiar? I actually posted this on Twitter too. What does that sound like? All right, I'll say it one more time. IQ, short for intelligence quotient, is a measure of a person's reasoning ability. In short, it is supposed to gauge how well someone can use information and logic to answer questions or make predictions. What does that sound like? No, bro, think harder. What is it? What are the principles that I have gave you guys for the past 9 to 11 months, almost 12? Algorithm, no. Intuition, logic, making sense, exactly. So I'm now essentially concluding, inferring that researching how to increase your overall IQ could benefit you in a way to where you can now interpret information better, and that can make your trading better long term. So that's like something I'm looking into, right? Because your ability to interpret, your ability to understand, that's pretty much the same thing, I'm sorry, right? But your ability to understand, your ability to apply, your ability to refine, and your ability to be patient, right, is essentially what compounds result. And since IQ, the literal definition of IQ is supposed to be, is the measure of your reasoning ability, indirectly, if you increase your IQ, your ability to understand, interpret, apply, refine, then indirectly your trading should improve because you're making it make sense, right? So you see how I'm connecting that? And this is something that the twins brought up to me, right? The admin twins, they actually brought this up to me and it made a lot of sense. So maybe like within the next couple weeks, I'll add another video talking about that, and it can maybe brought in, you know, your overall knowledge, understanding of what IQ is. An algorithm is a sequence used to come to a solution. Yes, but you got to keep in mind, algorithm is a lot different from me and you. Algorithm usually doesn't include that emotion factor. And it's hard to add rationality to an algorithm because everything is essentially a linear equation. Well, obviously it's not that simple, but I think you get what I mean. So it's hard, yeah, it's hard to make that analogy, but I see where you're coming from. Right, so this is kind of like that critical thinking side of things that I think really benefits long term. Right, because it's not just about trading, it's about knowing what you're trading, how you're trading it, why you're trading it, when you're trading it, you know? And it's also not just about buying an SE, it's about creating a legitimate reason, a legitimate setup, right? That creates that if this then that scenario, right? Then not only makes sense, but is highly probable based on research and refinement. Which is why refinement is continuous. Right, so does that make sense? Cool. Is that confusing in any way? Exactly. And I think that transition there, that adapting to that type of mindset is essentially going to be the difference maker between linear thinking and exponential thinking. And if you look at the picture that I posted on my Instagram story yesterday, right, that's essentially what the model is, right? Incremental versus exponential thinking when growing a business, right? But even though it says when growing a business, the principle applies. So business equals you as well, right? Like when people get impatient for results, as it says, right? I think it's very interesting. It's very like intellectual. So yeah, that's it's hard to understand, but I'm hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying. I think me making you aware of it is probably one of the most important parts as well. But yeah, does anybody want to add on to that? If not, I mean, we can end it off soon. We've almost been on for like an hour. All right, cool. Can we end it off there then? I'm curious about what Sergio can't talk right now. Sergio is he's going to the gym. Oh no, he's not going to the gym. He's going to some event right now with his family, I think. So he can't talk. Maybe you could just ask him on his next call, which is tomorrow. Yeah, you can ask him tomorrow, and you can bring it up in the chat too. We can always talk about it in the chat, or you could DM me or him. All right, cool. So can we end it off there? yeah, just hopefully you guys take away from that. At the end of the day, only you know how much work you're putting in, though. So it's hard to 100% critique you. Only you can really critique yourself. But yeah, I'll try to get these journals done probably by the end of tomorrow. And we'll update you guys on the course probably tomorrow night. But yeah, anyways, I'll see you guys on Tuesday.